So today we're looking at making some beanie burgers with a cucumber dressing, and we're using some really lovely ingredients and nothing's too expensive, and it's a very easy recipe to do. So we've got some borlotti beans, some breadcrumbs, an egg. The recipe will tell you pine nuts, but I'm going to use cashews today, so I find pine nuts quite expensive. We've got a red onion, and then for the cucumber dressing we've got some yoghurt, cucumber, a lemon and some basil. And of course we've got the thyme, that's for the burgers. I've already chopped the thyme. So we're going to start off by using a nice hot pan and just toasting the nuts. Now the nuts I'm using are quite big, so I am going to have to chop them afterwards, but if you're using pine nuts you won't need to do that. So we'll get them in the pan. And while they're frying off, I'm going to chop the onion. Now obviously, because these are going to be in a burger, the onion's going to need to be chopped quite finely. I've got a red onion, but if you haven't got a red onion, then don't worry, you can use white brown onion. And this recipe does make quite chunky burgers. So if you've got children, you might want to make them a little bit smaller, especially if you're putting them in tortilla wraps. I'm going to be using pita breads today. You do have to be careful when you're frying nuts. I think because of the oils in them, they look like they're not browning off, and then suddenly they burn. So as soon as they start going golden, that's the time to take them off the heats. Let's finish that onion. Brilliant. So like I said, I've already chopped the thyme. I'm going to pop that in the bowl, ready to mash with the beans and the nuts. And you do need a really sturdy bowl, because when you're mashing, if you've got just a plastic bowl, it might tip. Just makes your job a bit easier if you've got a nice big bowl. Smell those nuts. Are they going? Yeah, so they're just getting a tinge on them now. The pine nuts, if you're using them, they're quite small and they may cook a bit quicker, so keep a close eye on them. Yeah, and because I can see them going now, I'm going to take them off the heat and turn the pan off. So the next thing we need to do is drain the borlotti beans. So these are readily available in most supermarkets. And we'll just give them a little rinse. And here we go, into the bowl. So we've got the borlotti beans, the onion and the thyme. So we need to add about half of the breadcrumbs. So it does look quite a lot. And the rest of the breadcrumbs are going to go on the outside of the burgers to make them nice and crispy. We've got the breadcrumbs. 1 beaten egg. Lovely, that can go in. And then lastly, we're going to just chop these. Now if you're doing this with children, obviously, you'll need to be careful because they do get hot. So I'm just going to roughly chop those. It's really nice with a burger, a vegetarian burger, to have the nuts in, because it does give that variety of texture. Otherwise it can sometimes feel a bit mushy, especially the ones you buy in the shops, the frozen ones. It tastes a bit like baby food. going through my list of ingredients, and I mustn't forget to put the tomato puree in. Now I couldn't get the sun-dried tomato paste, but I have made these before, and the ordinary tomato puree, your regular puree, is just as good, just as tasty. There we go, so that's the nuts. I'll just check my recipe. Is that 1 or 2 tablespoons? It's 2, so that's quite a lot, isn't it? I'm going to guess it here. Yeah, it's about 1. More. That's quite a good amount. And lastly, we're going to put some seasoning in. Salt and pepper. There we go. Now we're going to the messy bit. Let's get mashing. Here we are. So I've been mashing that now for just about a minute, maybe a couple of minutes. And you can do this by, first of all, mashing the beans on their own, or you can plonk it all in together and give it a good mash. The beans are quite easy to do, and I prefer using this type of masher as opposed to this one. This is great for potatoes, but for beans, this one does work a bit better. Either or. I mean, I've also done this in the food processor, and that works really well, so long as you don't over process it, so it's another option. So once you've got all your mixture together, it's a great colour. Once you've got it all together, if you think about dividing it, how many you want to make, now like I said, it does make quite large burgers, so I'm going to cut it into 4. I'm going to do big ones. And then, now you can do this with wet hands if you find it a bit too sticky, but let's see how we get on. And I'm going to make mine into the shape of a pita bread, because that's what I'm using mine in. So sort of more of an oval than a circle, but obviously that's up to you. And just flatten them down a little bit. Don't worry too much about the shape, because you can always change that into the breadcrumbs. And then onto a plate, and that's where you can just give it a little tap, because these are going in the fridge for 30 minutes to firm up before frying them. So nice oval shape into the breadcrumbs and on the plate. Lovely. And they're going in the fridge for 30 minutes. So while the beanie burgers are in the fridge cooling, we're going to get on with the cucumber dressing. So I've washed and chopped my cucumber already into smaller parts for grating. And we've got the lemon, the yoghurt, some basil and salt. So we're going to start off by grating the cucumber. And what I would recommend is you get a clean tea towel and grate it on top, because it does get a bit messy and we're going to be squeezing out all the moisture from the cucumber. So I'm going to use this setting, so quite chunky, same one that you'd use for cheese. So there we are. Finished grating the cucumber, and it's all on the towel, ready to be squeezed out. So if you spread it out a little bit, and imagine you're making a sausage roll, just roll it up, twist the ends, and then over to the sink. Or, you know, you can do it in a bowl if you've got a bowl free, might be easier. Loads of water comes out. There we are. in the bowl. Lovely. And then I've already pre-weighed this out, so we've got 400 grams of yoghurt, and it does look quite a lot. If you look at a pot, you don't always have to weigh it out. If there's 500 grams in a pot, you know, you can kind of judge how much, take a little bit out. So I'm just going to grab a spoon. Yoghurt goes in. It's a bit like an Indian dip. Right up. So in with the yoghurt. I've got half a lemon. Now if you haven't got one of these squeezers, you can always just use a fork and turn it in, just like you're turning a key in a door. And that works really well. And last but not least, my favourite herb, we're going to put some basil in. And we need about 2 teaspoons of this once it's chopped up. Obviously, if you haven't got fresh basil, you could use a different herb, or you might have some dried. I have definitely made too much basil, but that's okay. I can save some of that, put it in my salad later. So about 2 teaspoons. I'm going to be quite generous anyway. And then a squirt of salt, dried salt, and pepper if you like. Give it a stir. And there we are. That's our cucumber dressing. So I've just taken the burgers out of the fridge, and I have just squished them down a little bit to make them a nice shape for my pitas and to make sure that they cook through evenly. And I'm heating about a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon of half of sunflower oil in the pan on a medium heat. So let's get them in. And I'm just going to do 2 at a time. My pan's not going to be big enough for these, I don't think. So here we are. I've turned them over. They've had 2 or 3 minutes on one side, and about the same on the other side. More like 3 minutes actually. And so I'm going to put them in pita bread. Made a salad, and of course we've got the lovely cucumber dip that we made too. You will go in, there we are. And there we are. Beanie burgers with cucumber dip with salad.